Hey guys, it's Ryan Holman, founder of Sales Recruiting University, back with another weekly screenshot video. I wanted to walk you through exactly how this client signed 11 sales reps last week. So within 1 week, they signed 11 reps. And this is one guy running the recruiting process. And he, manages a pretty large organization and has a lot of other responsibilities on his plate. And so the reason he was able to accomplish all of this is simply because of the recruiting model, the way that the ads are done, the way that the screening and scheduling process is done, the group interview process, how you funnel people from the group interview right into one-on-one interviews. I'm going to talk you through that whole process and paint a picture of how he signed 11 new sales reps in just 1 week. Now, keep in mind, this is a remote company, so they're not limited by geography. I would say, 40% of our clients are remote opportunities where, it's decentralized. There's no geography restrictions from an advertisement perspective. And then the other 60% are localized companies that are hypothetically in Salt Lake City or Dallas, Texas, or Tampa, Florida, or maybe multiple localized markets, and they're looking to scale up their localized outside or inside commission-based sales team. But my general point is, for remote opportunities, creating lead flow through the recruiting process is much easier. Okay, the same budget for a remote opportunity compared to maybe a localized company in, let's say, Orlando, Florida, or Chicago, Illinois, that same budget will create 5 to 10x the amount of applicants compared to the localized company, specifically because of the geography restrictions. And so in this case, this is a remote client. Also keep in mind, this is not a recruiting service client. I would say 75% of our clients are recruiting service clients, and then the other 25% are done with you clients, where we build out their ads, screening and scheduling, group interviews, final interviews, and teach them how to take that entire process in-house. That's what this guy did. And then also provide them, coaching within our mastermind clients with all our other clients, coaching calls with, all our other clients around training, onboarding, compensation, so they can work to improve those sales department systems, resulting into actually retaining reps. But here's how this client actually signed 11 sales reps in 1 week. Again, advertisement, screening and scheduling, group interviews, and final interviews. Here's what he said. Just finished our 3rd full week of volume recruiting. We moved to 4 interviews per week. As a side note, just like in a sales process, in a group interview model, a lot of our clients, the normal is 2 group interviews per week. If the volume of hires needed is not big, and or if the client is really limited on time, and they can still be happy with the recruiting results, they'll do 1 group interview per week. But doing 2 is better than 1 from a candidate's perspective because they have more options in the process. Just like in a sales process, let's say you only do 1 group interview per week, and that's the only time you're giving, options for candidates. Well, they're kind of forced to say yes to that, although it may not be perfect for them. And because it's only 1 option, you're forcing them into scheduling into 1 time. They may just do it, but it may not be a perfect fit, and therefore your show-up rates are not going to be as good. And if I did 1 per day at 12 p.m., hypothetically, Monday through Friday, my show-up rates are going to be a lot higher than just offering 1 option because it's better and more convenient for candidates. So that's obvious. But anyways, this company was really looking to increase volume, increase show-up rates. So he said, hey, if you have the time, go from 2 to 3, 4, or 5 group interviews. So they went to 4. That worked with them. Within 1 week, they scheduled 140 people into 4 group interviews, which I think on average is about 35 per group interview. Doesn't matter in this case, they're a remote company. They're doing it via Zoom. Doesn't matter if there's 3 people or, 300 people in the group, because you're not limited by, office size. They're in a group presentation. But within 1 week across 4 group interviews, they scheduled 140 people. Roughly 50% of those people showed up, which, are good averages. That's kind of the norm. I'd say 40% is the average. They have, 50%, which is really cool. By the way, part of the reason they're above the averages is because there's more group interview times, and therefore it's better for candidates, higher show-up rates, like I was just talking about. But they had 72 out of 140 scheduled candidates show up to 1 of the 4 group interviews. Roughly 55 to 60% at the end of the presentation were still there, which means they're like, hey, this sounds cool. The industry, the opportunity, the growth, advancement opportunity, the income ranges, the culture, the industry, the company story, all that stuff is interesting enough for me to consider moving forward and be here at the end of the group interview presentation. So 38 out of 72 throughout this whole week were interested potentially in taking next steps. At the end of that, 22 out of the 38 people, so roughly half of those people, So roughly 25 to 30% of everybody that showed up onto the group interview actually turned into a one-on-one interview. So what they were able to do is provide really clear, provide a ton of clarity around the opportunity and create 22 interviews with an insanely high show-up rate with candidates that fully understood their opportunity by bringing clarity in the group interview. So when they got to their one-on-one interviews, the candidates got it. They understood all the good details, the unsexy details, and they're just ready to dive in from there. And so out of those 22 people that showed up to one-on-one interviews within a 24-hour period, by the way, you want to do your one-on-ones quickly, just like in a sales process. If I set you to talk with one of our recruiting advisors tomorrow versus if I set you in a week, you're more likely to show up tomorrow because we've collapsed the timeline around your interest in connecting with us. The same thing exists within the recruiting process. So these guys are doing their one-on-ones right after the group interview or at the latest the following day, probably in the morning. But 140 scheduled, 72 showed up, 38 stayed till the end, 22 people turned into one-on-one interviews. And from those 22 people, they closed 50% of them, which is really good. 11 people that started in 1 week. Okay. And one person was able to accomplish all this because of the efficiency in the model. Okay. The average recruiting process takes 10 to 15 hours to sign one sales rep. Okay. These guys probably invested around 10 hours to sign 11, which is awesome. 20 to 30 minute group interviews, 20 to 30 minute final interviews because they're looking for volume, and they were able to accomplish a lot in a week. Okay, so the same process aligns even if you're looking to hire one person. I just did a video that's on our YouTube channel, and I walked through the average numbers of the average recruiting process. At least for us, by the way, we have about 50 to 70,000 applicants across all our active recruiting clients, 50 to 70,000 applying to like thousands of ads every single month. So we know the numbers. It's 50 applicants will turn into one onboarded recruit, or one person that shows up to onboarding that's signed. 50 applicants, 40% look interesting enough to connect with. You pump those, 40% into either phone interviews, which we don't like to do, or a group interview, which we prefer because it's more efficient. And then you funnel down from there. If you're doing resume screenings to phone interviews to one-on-one interviews, it's taking you 10 to 15 hours to get one rep signed. And if you're a commission-based opportunity, like a lot of our clients, you can't just recruit one. You got to recruit 2, 3, 4, 5 people to get one to stick. Unless you have leads and salaries and stuff like that, then you're limited based on your budget on how many people you can recruit. But the general idea here is the most efficient model to get as much volume through your recruiting process as possible and to protect your time in the recruiting process and eliminate no-show issues is by doing group interviews instead of phone interviews and funneling candidates into one-on-one interviews right after the group presentation. Once you get it good at that, recruiting is easy. And then it's working on the complexity around how we manage, how we train, how we lead, how we do our one-on-one meetings, how we do our team meetings. If you don't know anything about SRU, half of what we do is the recruiting process. So you can pump in volume, whether that's 2 people a week, 1 person a week, or 20 people a month, whatever. We have clients that onboard as high as 100 reps per month and ones that just want to hire 1 per month. But we help with the recruiting side. And then we also fix all the stuff that happens, the complexity that happens post signing the rep to ensure that you're retaining the most out of the people that you're hiring, right? That's what you need. Recruiting, retention. The retention results into sales production. So hopefully this video was valuable to you. If so, subscribe, share, drop a comment, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.